Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
This program was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I'm so excited to share with you my adventures and tried and true tips, whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 103rd episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and it is entitled See You Next Summer. Now, I know summer's not over yet, even though we're getting close to school being back in, but I know you still want to squeeze every drop of this summer, but that doesn't mean that we are too early to start thinking about next summer plans. I know you're thinking, let's get through this summer first. We still have some more things on 2024's summer bucket list challenge that we want to check off and that we want to experience. And I'm not trying to take away from that at all, but here's what I want to tell you. There are some types of trips, as you may have noticed while planning this summer's adventures, there are some types of trips that take a lot more planning than others. Sometimes you can just pack up and do a last-minute road trip. Sometimes you needed months, or even in this case, sometimes maybe even a year to plan for a big summer vacation, especially if you're going somewhere that needs a passport. Flights are very expensive in the summer last minute. You have a large family with 5 or more people. You'll notice that there are some cruise lines that only have a very limited number of cabins that can sleep more than 4. There are some cruise itineraries, for example, if you're doing a cruise, that they are primarily in the summer, whether it's a European, like a Mediterranean cruise, or an Alaskan cruise, which means if you have a shorter season, everyone is going to be condensed into those 3 or 4 months, which means you can't do a last-minute Alaskan cruise, especially with a family of 4 or more. That's something that you want to plan ahead of time. So I'm going to give you a list of questions to help with planning next year's big summer adventure. So number 1, where do we want to go? Seems like a basic question, but it is exactly where you should start, because where you want to go makes the difference of when you need to start planning. So do you want to go out of the country? If the answer is yes, then it is not too early to start planning for next summer, because June and July and even August are going to be very expensive travel months. Why? Because kids are out for the summer. So when the kids are out, that's when everybody's waiting to travel. So I have guests that message me every year, and I get messages almost daily, 365 days a year, asking for, travel tips, recommendations. And about April or May, sometimes after a spring break, sometimes people are thinking, okay, we didn't know if we were going to be able to do a big family trip. We've decided we're going for it. And at that point, sometimes it's too late for a beaches family vacation and you have 6 people, 2 adults and 4 kids. This is when you want to start planning if you're wanting to go out of the country. Okay, so ask yourself, where do you want to go? Is it somewhere that you're going to be able to drive, or are you going to need to fly? If you're going to need to fly, then most of the time you can't even book airfare until 11 months out. So you're like, well, if I'm not going until next July, I still have another month or so. But you want to start looking now so you're ready as soon as those flights open up. So do we need to book now? Again, it depends on when and where you're wanting to go. If you're wanting to do an Alaskan cruise for summer of 2025, most certainly you want to be booking now. Are you wanting to do a beaches family all-inclusive in Jamaica, whether it's Ocho Rios or Negril or Beaches Turks and Caicos? Definitely you need to be booking that now. Also, I'm going to really encourage you to think about, when is the earliest you could go? Could you possibly go the last week of May? If so, you'd be surprised. You may save thousands by going the last week of May. Say school's out by May 24th, you're going to go the week of Memorial Day. Even though that's a holiday week, you've got a holiday weekend there, it's still going to be less than a lot of prices for June and July. So keep that in mind. Are our passports valid? Better question, do we have passports? Are we going to need passports? Are you flying internationally? Then the answer is yes, you need passports. Are you taking a cruise? You may not have to have a passport in some situations, but they are still strongly recommended. And 10 out of 10, I'm going to recommend if you can get a passport, you need to have a passport. Even if you are traveling on a cruise and a birth certificate and a driver's license would suffice, it would not help you fly back in the case of an emergency. To fly internationally, you need a passport. What age? All ages. If you're born, you need a passport. So I'm asked that as well. Children do need passports. Theirs are good for 5 years, whereas adults are good for 10 years. So check and make sure that your passports are valid and that you actually have them. This is a perfect time to be ordering for next year. Ask yourself to look and see when school is out. I know we just talked about this. It depends on, what age your kids are. Do you have anyone graduating in the household, in your family? Are you going to be attending different graduations, whether it's college or high school or any other type of graduation? Look at when the school calendar is over and see if we can plan accordingly. So if it's over May 24th, maybe you can travel by May 25th or May 26th and beat the rush for other states that they get out early June to mid-June. So you might see more availability that last week in May, and you might actually see better pricing. Should I go ahead and put down a deposit? For a cruise or an all-inclusive, I definitely would, or there might not even be availability in a month. So I would recommend doing that soon. Another question, is this going to be a potential group trip? If the answer is yes, then I strongly recommend you go back and listen a few episodes ago where I talk about planning for a group trip, things that you want to know, need to know. I have several families that are already thinking about group trips for next year, whether it's an Alaskan cruise or a beaches all-inclusive and they want to invite friends and family. Graduation trips for 2025, this is when we start planning. I have another really big group trip that I'm working on right now that involves going to Universal. So for Disney trips, Universal trips, it definitely is not too early to be planning now for 2025. You can put a deposit down and make payments. Makes it so much easier than trying to scrounge it all up at the last minute. You have better availability and longer to pay it off. And then lastly, what preparation can I do between now and next summer? So not only what preparation can you do, but this helps build the excitement. Knowing where you're planning on going helps you to be better prepared, but it also builds the excitement over an entire year. So you have longer to pay for it, more time to be excited, and better time to prepare. What if you're going to another country? Then that gives you time to start working on learning a foreign language, even if it's just basic vocabulary and some common phrases. That can go a long way. That's something you could do as a family together. Read books based on the location where you're traveling to. Maybe you want to go to Prince Edward Island. Then read Anne of Green Gables. Maybe your family is like, we're going to Universal for our very first time. Read Harry Potter together as a family. Think about where you're going. Are there any books, whether they're fiction or nonfiction? And then you can build that into presents throughout the year. See how that works? So you might have birthdays between now and next summer, Christmas between now and next summer. So plenty of opportunities then to get presents that are geared towards your big summer trip next year. Maybe you need to start getting more exercise. You know that wherever you're going, there's going to be hiking involved. And so you want to have some practice now, taking shorter hikes, going to Tishomingo State Park, maybe going to some state parks throughout Tennessee or Alabama, getting some hiking experience instead of like, we're going to Yellowstone next year. We're not hikers. We don't have any experience. We're just going to wing it. Instead of winging it, be prepared. You'll have a better experience overall. If you're going to theme parks and you think you don't need to do some training now, you have not been in a while. My feet never hurt like they do on a long day at Magic Kingdom or Epcot. So walk now with your kids, with your significant other, with your friends who are going to be traveling with you, and do some trip planning as you're walking and getting that exercise. We talked about ordering passports, making payments. Oh, another thing you could do right now, buy summer clothes, or maybe you're going to the beach next year and it's going to be a big trip and you want a beach tent or a beach wagon or, sand toys. All these things are going to be going on sale. They're going to be going on clearance at the end of the summer. Bathing suits, summer towels, towel clips, things like that. You can get a huge discount by looking ahead and buying for next year now. So think about what items would you need. Maybe it's camping equipment. That could go on sale too. The longer you have before the trip, the longer you have then to be able to plan to get the best value for what you want. Instead of last minute where you're like, I will take the most expensive thing because that's all that's left. Maybe you have time to order online. Maybe you have time to browse local shops to find what it is that you want to get so you're prepared for next year. So even though we still have some time left for this summer, it is definitely not too early to be planning ahead for summer of 2025. And if you would like help, then contact me. Join our Facebook group, Heather and Logan Tate, Whimsical Destinations. My cell phone is 662-401-9327. I'd love to hear from you and be able to help guide you through the process of planning your big summer adventure for 2025. Wherever you go, whatever you're doing, make it an adventure. Life is short. Take the trip. Make those memories. You won't regret it.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcast, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.